Mhm.
All right, folks, I'm here with my awesome friends here at the Scrum, the daily Scrum for our PMP prep. And now we found impediments and we're looking for more. And the way we're doing this is through this exercise. So as you see on the screen, it says you're doing a sprint review. What does this best describe? So let's talk it through. Let's share the results. Rather polarized. We have 40% saying it's A and what? 60% say it's C. What do we do in a sprint review? A sprint review is also known as a what?
Inspection.
Good, good.
A demo.
Okay. A demo, good. But when you boil it down, it's really for what purpose? What purpose? What's the end game here? What's the best result from this meeting?
To show the product.
Good. And then what's the best thing that could happen after you do that?
Get the quality and value from it. To analyze the quality and value.
Good. And what's the best outcome that reflects that?
Approval.
There you go. Hello. So which of these processes is that? That's the question.
Validate scope.
Boom.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I mean, I like the way you've all analyzed it, but can you shed some more light on why A? Maybe we can learn something and maybe we can, you know.
I chose A because I was thinking in the Agile world, it's a repeated, sprints are repeated functions or repeated activities. So you can't be towards the end of it always. So you're monitoring and controlling at that point until you get to the last one.
Ah, actually, no. So I'm glad you're saying this. So think about it like this. You're cooking dinner for your family and your sweet son, and let's say he wants some dessert. You give him the dessert and he says, "Great job, Mom. I love it. It was delicious." Okay, that's one delivery. He doesn't need to wait till he's eaten the 3-course meal before he says, "Great job, Mom." He has eaten it. He likes it. He's accepted it. Next. All right. Here's a treat of some sort. Maybe it's a sweet he likes. Eats it again. Great job. You just had 2 increments delivered and they're all value, and the value is being utilized. In the world of Agile, we don't wait till end. There's no end, theoretically speaking. It could just go on and on and on until the product owner says, "You know what? I think you've had enough, young man. That's the end. We've had enough value. Let's shut it down." So instead of how we do things in the world of predictive, like we add and add and add and add, and then we get to the validate scope. No, the validate scope happens at the end of every sprint in the world of Agile, theoretically speaking. Does that make sense?
Completely.
Yeah, because you've delivered value and he enjoyed it. And then another piece of value, enjoyed it. And all those sprints, they're all value drops. They're all incremental value drops. So we learned something. See, that's why it's good to explain. I totally get why you chose A now, but now we know we've done some correction and we know that in the world of Agile, it works differently. Carice, what comment did you have?
Well, it was just that once you explain, think about like the end result, then it was a little bit more clear. But you know, the review is also a place where the stakeholders might come up with a change. You're also like showing, you know, where you kind of are. So you might be showing where the burn up and burn down charts. They might kind of come up with a change that they want to scope. But
that is very true. Thank you for saying that. So let's juxtapose what Carice said against A. In that light, A could be another plausible option. Now I can see why you would say, well, you know, showing a burn chart is something else we do in a sprint review. But You got to choose the line of best fit. What is the most overarching purpose? I mean, without your PSI, hello, what are you demoing? You're not demoing anything.
I mean, it definitely has to be validated scope because, you know, whatever you're showing or you intend to show would have met the definition of done,
There you go.
right?
There you
So
go.
like you think about in predictive, when you go and you do control quality and you do your team looks at what they've created, they verify that, okay, this is good. And then you have that next process where now the people that you built it for are looking at what was created and making decisions about how they feel about it, if it met their requirements the way that they expected. So that's why it's validated scope.
You got it. You got it. And I need to look for all those videos where I did the breakdown of, in the world of predictive, we call it this. In the world of Agile, we call it this. I need to look for that video. And I don't think April had that spreadsheet. I need to look for that spreadsheet. Don't worry.
Cynthia actually sent it to me.
Oh, she did. Oh, lovely, lovely. That's the power of the group. Lovely. Good deal. Do you want to do one more? Carice isn't amused. She said I was mean in that last one. Let's do this and we'll call it a day. This next one. Okay. Let's make this one even harder so Carice will have something to say. Yeah, okay. You are a project manager. All right, let me make it smaller and make it fit in there. All right, you're a PM on an Agile project. The team needs to do some spike work before a story can be worked on. Which of these is most closely related to what the team needs to do? Let's go ahead and launch the poll. All right. All right. Very abstract question, huh? I think we spent 1 hour, 1 minute and 20 something seconds. Okay. All right. Come on now. Go with your gut. This is where we also train our gut. Go with your gut, the intuition factor. Come on now. This is where we learn to conquer our fears. Well done. All right, 3, 2, 1. Come on, I need more folks to join in the fun. Just guess. It's okay. It doesn't bite. You see, that was easy. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Let's end the poll. Share the results. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay. So let's go through the question. You're a PM on an Agile project. The team needs to do some spike work. What is spike work?
It's research.
Carice isn't impressed.
It's a pause when you do like research or you investigate something. They call
Yes.
it a
Good.
learning event.
Good, good. You're both very correct. Okay. What happens when we realize we need to do spike work? What do we do? What do we do with
We're
the
trying to-
backlog?
We're trying to identify the user story to define it more.
Good. Okay. So what actions do we take on the product backlog when we discover that certain spike work needs to happen?
Reprioritize.
Okay. And what else?
Assess the definition of done.
You may not have to do that, but when you realize that there needs to be spike work, you do something to the backlog. It becomes a different type of backlog. What does it become?
Refinement.
So the risk adjusted.
It's thank you, Carice. That's what I was looking for. So there is some sort of refinement that will take place. And that refinement is where you insert those spikes, right? And like Carice said, it is then called a risk adjusted backlog. Let's see if this word is even in here. Wait, risk adjusted backlog. It's not even here. Nah. Okay. So the risk adjusted backlog is that version of the backlog that accounts for all those spikes you've inserted in there. And those spikes, when you boil it down, they're actually risk coping mechanisms. That research, that prototyping that you're going to do, it's a risk coping mechanism to better your chances of success on the project. That's really what it is. So you insert these spikes. Let me see if I can pull up that
Phil, is this also a
PowerPoint.
mechanism to prevent defects?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah,
Okay.
that's it. It's all towards that goal of getting it right, whether it helps you avert defects, it helps you avert debt, technically, many things, you know, many things. I think I've got a slide here. This will really help cement it. Let me see if I can find it. Agile PowerPoint. Okay, here we go. It's a very big file, so bear with me as it opens. But this will be a good place for us to end for tonight. So for our friends who are not here, they'll kind of get an idea. And honestly, this game, we could play this game all day long, so we might play it again in the future. But let's talk about the risk-adjusted backlog for a second. Very, very big file, so my computer is struggling to open it. Okay, here we go. I will bring this up on the screen so everyone can see. And then we'll go back to Carice's screen to finish it off. All right, so let's do this. Here, all right. So the general idea is that you've got your backlog, all right? You've got your backlog, as you can see over here, right? Or over here, I beg your pardon. So you've got your backlog over here, but there are also some risks that are associated with your project. In order to take care of these risks that you've identified, this is a prioritized list of risks. In order to take care of those, you need to identify specific actions that are tied to the actual backlog. So if we need to carry out certain work, risk one action, that's a spike that we need to do. So we insert the spike in there so that we can do our research in, our prototyping before we do the associated story 3. See that? And we do the same for risk action 2. Risk action 2 is going to be a spike that is carried out before story 4. So this concept of a risk adjusted backlog just means they're actions that we need to carry out. All right, so these are all risk coping mechanisms. So when you do these, you are executing all of those items in your risk adjusted backlog. In other words, you're implementing all those things that you said you would do. It's one thing to have the actions, but it's another thing to actually do those actions. So when you're carrying out that spike work, that's really what you're doing. It's no longer planning. Identifying the risk actions is one thing, but actually carrying them out is implementing the response. All right, Carice, let's go back to your screen. We could, please. All right, there we go. So I know it's gotten rid of my long narration. I should have taken a screenshot, but really it was saying your spike work, right? What do you do? So a spike is a risk item that you're going to take action on. It's an action item, if you will. It's an action that you're going to do. Spike is doing. Spike isn't a risk. A spike is action that you're going to take. So it's prototyping, that's an action. It's research, that's an action. Let's read what it says one more time here. Page 154, it says, a short time interval within a project, usually of fixed length, during which a team conducts research or prototypes an aspect of a solution to prove its viability. So if you look at all of this, I know that it's very far away, but the closest, it's not procurements. It's not managing stakeholder engagement. It's not planning procurements. It's carrying out these actions as a coping mechanism. And that's why the best answer, what did everyone choose? Let's go back to the poll. Yeah, some folks chose A. So if you chose A, why did you choose A?
I chose A because none of the other, so a spike is a user story, which is at the beginning of the project. So I wouldn't be conducting anything. I wouldn't be really planning anything that has to do with procurements, since we just had that conversation. And in Agile, everybody has, I guess, equal value in the team. So the team, the Scrum Master, stakeholders, product owner, even though technically there isn't stakeholders. So my brain just went right to, it has to be something to do with risk.
Gotcha, good.
So I picked D because I felt that like sometimes you might be doing research to figure out like maybe a story is not estimated properly, or you're not really sure what the nature of what you need. So my head went to kind of planning and how you do the make or buy analysis, try to figure out like where you're going to go with actually trying to get to the point where you're producing something.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting take.
I mean, I do understand the risk piece, but I just felt like more information needed to figure out how we plan our way forward with executing something.
Gotcha. Makes sense. The connection points make sense. So, I mean, if you really boil it down in Agile, how many times do we really hear a lot about the procurement side? Very rare, right? Very few and far between. And that's why the line of best fit, but it's a very interesting take. So in the absence of implement risk responses, that could have been the next plausible option for market research, talking about market research and stuff. Yeah, I get that. Cool.
My approach was more simple. I just said a spike is basically something that has to be investigated. So it's an unknown. And if you
Okay.
have an unknown, it's a risk. So
Okay.
I would implement a risk response or implement risk responses.
Interesting. Good, good. And we're learning, we're discovering. So we're learning a lot. I know some folks will look at this question and say, well, Phil, that's very unconventional. We don't even do these processes in Agile. Look, when PMI gives you
That's the
stuff.
way I looked at it. And I chose stakeholder engagement, but I should have looked at manage. I knew it wasn't B and D, like, because there's no procurement.
Yeah.
And I was gonna go with A, and I was like, oh, no. And I just looked at stakeholder engagement, but the word manage should have made me cross that out.
And the funny thing is how PMI named that, because managed stakeholder engagement is actually having conversations with the stakeholders and working with them. So it sounds draconian, but it's actually not a bad process step. The same thing for monitor stakeholder engagement. It's just monitoring how well you're engaging those stakeholders. So yeah, good job. I think we learned something, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
We learned a thing or two. But thank you very much. Thank you, Carice, for being my co-pilot. And our friends who aren't here while you watch it, joining the fun.